you are stupid. You're stupid.
You called me a bad economist. I'm stupid.
Well, you're
what
not
else are you going to do? Come on. I've been very civil to you,
You're not a
Donald.
good economist. No, you haven't. You're not a good economist at all.
Donald Trump, let's indulge the thought that you are going to run for the presidency of the United States in the year 2016. What's the slogan going to be?
I think my slogan would be, make America great again.
That's too long. Come on with something pithier.
No, make America great again. You're talking about 4 words. I think it's a very precise slogan. I mean, that would probably be my slogan, make America great again.
Mr. Trump, hello, Matt Frei.
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
Nice to see you.
Come in, please.
Let's
But I shouldn't really say that. It's your boardroom.
That's okay. That's okay. Nice to be with you.
We were just saying, my camera was joking he was going to move the table, but then of course you can't because it's made of,
Pretty heavy.
Of marble the size of the Berlin Wall, practically.
It's pretty heavy. I brought this.
Oh, thank you very much.
This just came out of Scotland.
Excellent. Okay, I'll have a look at that.
#1 new course.
Excellent. What do I call you, by the way?
Call me Donald.
Are you
Call
sure?
me whatever you want.
Okay, I'll call you.
Call me whatever you want. Can we get these on? Absolutely. Okay. So what's this all about?
It's all about you. So your office is just
Do you have a
above this,
monitor
right?
by any chance?
I don't, but if you
It's okay. Don't worry.
have a look through the camera.
Nah, that's
It looks good.
whatever it is, right? It's too late, Matt.
It's always too late.
Too late to do anything.
Well, no, you look good. I've done TV a few times before, so
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
yeah, exactly. Are we set? Donald Trump. Donald, thank you very much for doing this interview. Now, I read somewhere that you don't like shaking people's hands because you're afraid of germs.
Well, I'm not afraid of germs, Matt. I don't think it's a great custom. It's been proven, as you know, a person has a cold, a horrible cold, and they shake your hand. All of a sudden, 2 days later, you have a cold. You say, I wonder how that happened. It's not a great thing, but I do it. I shook your hand. What am I going to catch from you, right?
Hey.
So I was very happy to shake your hand.
We've only met a few minutes ago. Okay.
Well, it's not a great thing, and it's been proven that it's not a great thing, but I do it. I mean, I have no problem with it.
Which is good, because if you want to run for president, as you might well do, then shaking hands is kind of part of the job, isn't it?
Well, the other night I had dinner at a great restaurant, and a man comes out of the bathroom. I see him, and he's shaking his hands like this. His hands are soaking wet. And he sees me at the table, and he comes over and goes, Mr. Trump, I'm such a fan of yours. Do you mind if I shake your hand? I shook his hand. His hand is soaking wet. I'm saying, all right. So you know what I did? I didn't eat as much than that, which is okay, too.
So if I shook your hand again, no fear?
No fear. No, it's not a fear.
You withdrew that very quickly, though. That was a quick withdrawal.
It's not a fear thing. But as you know, science has proven me right. I mean, it's just one of those things.
Thank God I'm getting over my cold. Thank God it's all behind me.
That's okay. Certainly, I have no problem with it, but it causes problems for people. There's no question about that.
Let's talk about politics. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you were flirting with the presidential campaign in the year 2000, and then again in 2011. Why did you bottle out?
Well, not so much in 2000. I did look at it recently, prior to the last election. I had tremendous poll numbers and still have tremendous poll numbers. But I have to give up a lot. You know, I'm doing projects all over the world. Did a great one with you in Scotland, a fantastic project that's been a great success.
But surely running the biggest nation on earth is more important than running a golf course.
No, and running lots of buildings and doing The Apprentice, which is a tremendous success in this country. And it's been amazing, and I've had an amazing time. I thought that maybe Mitt Romney would win. He didn't do so well. He didn't resonate. He's a nice man, a fine man, but he didn't resonate. And it was a little bit of a tough thing for me. I really would have loved to have thought about running.
Did you regret not running?
Do you need something, by the way?
No, I'm just getting...
Oh, I thought...
Just getting a third. It's a
I
third
didn't.
camera, so it's okay.
Fine.
We want it's a 3 camera.
Yeah, I just didn't.
Okay, no, it's fine. That's okay. So did you regret not running in the end?
I regretted that I didn't run, yes. I thought Mitt Romney could win. I backed him. I helped him a lot. I really helped him get the nomination more so than anything else. I didn't get too involved in the election other than I did vote for him. But he didn't resonate. Somehow there was no... It just didn't work.
And you think that you could?
Well, you know, when I left, when I decided not to run, and I didn't run and lose, I decided not, I was leading in the polls. And Meet the Press, a big story, a big thing, had me leading in the polls, and the following day I announced I was going to do The Apprentice, and I was going to continue to build. You know, I'd have to put everything in trust. I wouldn't have been able to do things that I was doing, many of the things that I was doing. And so it's a big burden. When you're an entrepreneur, and especially a big one, and you have a big company with thousands of employees, and you decide to run, that's a big thing. It's a hard thing to do. When you're a politician, All they do is run for office, so it's not that big a deal.
But were you afraid that you were basically gambling away all the things you had for something that you might not actually succeed in?
Well,
was that
certainly.
Was it fear of failure?
Sure. I mean, certainly you could say that, obviously, if you run, you have a lot of people running, and they're smart, and who knows what's going to happen. I was leading in the polls and doing very well in the polls, and it did resonate, my message resonated. But I will say that there would certainly be a chance that either you wouldn't get the nomination or you wouldn't win the election. It's almost the same thing. And if that happened, it's a lot of work.
Okay, so are you going to run this time?
Well, I look and I'll study. I have no plans to do that. I love what I'm doing. We're doing Doral, 800 acres in Miami. We're doing a tremendous job. The old post office on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington. I'm doing jobs all over the world. Do I love doing what I'm doing? Yes. Do I like it best? I love doing what I'm doing. And that's part of the thing. When you love what you do, it's hard to say, oh, gee, I want to do something else. However, I love the country. I love the United States. The United States is in trouble. If I can do something to help, I will do it. So it's too early to make that decision.
So why not grasp the nettle, Donald Trump, and announce in this interview that you will run for the White House in 2016?
Well, that would make a lot of people happy, I can tell you, and probably some people not so happy. I am looking. I will see what happens. I would certainly love to continue doing what I'm doing because I'm having a good time doing it, but we'll see what happens.
So it's a yes, possibly.
No, it's really just the word possibly. I mean, I'm certainly not ruling it out, and so the word possibly would be appropriate.
Okay, because here's the point. I mean, a lot of ordinary folks in this country and in the UK are very upset with professional politicians. Professional politicians have never been less popular than they are now.
I fully understand.
So many people look towards business tycoons like yourself, as they did in the city of New York with Michael Bloomberg,
right,
to run things. But I wonder whether someone like you is actually ill-equipped for politics, because having run stuff, having been in charge, having been able to say, you're fired, your skin is far too thin. You can't deal with the kind of grubby compromises that politics demand.
Well, and you may be right. I mean, to be honest with you may be right. And then again, you may be very wrong. I mean, I see the way some politicians run things, and it's horrible. I see what's going on in Scotland, where billions and billions of pounds is being spent on these horrible wind turbines all over the country, destroying the country. Horrible energy, horrible in so many ways, kills the environment, kills the birds. The birds are just being decimated all over Scotland and other places. And I see the kind of thinking.
So you're not a fan of wind power, I gather.
Well, wind power is a disaster.
Okay.
I mean, no, it's very bad for the environment. But I see this is a decision, and it needs subsidy. Frankly, England is subsidizing Scotland. Okay, this is a beauty, and why they're doing it, I don't understand it, because it's very, very bad for the environment and other things. So, I see decisions that are made, and they're so bad, made by politicians. They're so bad that you would say that actually maybe a politician, it should be imperative that they go into business for a while. Because look at the way the United States, we have a deficit that's phenomenal. We owe $17 trillion. We owe numbers that a lot of people say are not repayable. And the politicians got us into that mess.
But what makes you think that you can do a better job, especially when you seem to have quite a thin skin? You get very upset when people make fun of you.
Well, no, I don't get upset. I mean, I don't get upset. It's very interesting. I don't get upset if they're correct. I get angry if they are not correct, because I've seen so much dishonest reporting. It's been amazing over the course of the years.
Hang on, I was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in 2011 when you were the butt of President Obama's jokes, and it was very funny, but you weren't laughing. You were sitting there scowling. You couldn't take the joke.
Okay, no, you're wrong about that. I loved it. I absolutely
didn't look like it.
You're wrong.
I was watching you.
Excuse me. I had 5,000. I didn't know how to act. Do I smile? Do I laugh? What am I supposed to
joke.
do? I had every camera in the world on me at the time. In fact, when I went there, they said, "Do you think he'll make jokes?" I said, "Maybe, maybe not." I sort of assumed not. Well, as you know, and he was very respectful. It was nice. It wasn't horrible stuff. He was joke after joke. I mean, it was almost like the speech, right? And I said to my wife, I tapped her on the knee, and I said, "Do you believe it? This entire speech is about me. I can't believe it. I loved it." But I didn't act like I loved it. The next day, and I actually loved it, and my friends all knew it. I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. He was good, and he frankly delivered it well, and it was respectful. They had the White House with the name Trump on it, things. I loved it. The next day, the paper said I didn't love it. Now, maybe because I didn't think it was appropriate for me to be laughing, but I was smiling. I had a great time, and the press really covered that wrong.
But
But even you thought I didn't like
No,
it.
you
So
didn't.
obviously I did something wrong.
You looked as if you had a major sense of humor, Frei.
No.
Because just to put this in context for the viewers, so that, of course, you had been going on for months about President Obama's birth certificate,
Right.
which was a bit of a red herring, let's face it. There are more important issues to discuss
Well, except that if
in
you-
world politics than Obama's
other than the
birth
fact that you're not allowed
certificate.
to be president if there was
But
a
would you have
problem.
asked that? I'm just curious. Would you have asked that question about the birth certificate of a white president?
Well, it depends where the person was born. I mean, nobody knew, and still, there are still many questions. You do understand that. This is not something.
You're
that's
still
been
going on
exactly
about the birth
No,
thing?
I'm not going on, because I'm going on about China. I'm going on about lots of other things that are
But
really
was
hurting
that
the
a red herring? Was that a distraction?
No, I think it was probably something that made me very popular. I mean, I was leading in every poll.
But it also made you a joke in many people's eyes.
I don't think so. I think it made me very popular. I think I became extremely popular, and that really launched me to the #1 position
But popular with whom?
with the people that vote.
So why didn't you then take it further?
Because I really felt that the Republicans could win. They could win easily. I thought Romney, and he's a good man, I thought he could do a good job, and I endorsed him. I then got back to building buildings all over the place, and frankly, he didn't do the job that we hoped he would do.
But so I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm just curious about this. So you didn't look as if you were laughing at the jokes, made at your expense. You took a comedian, or you thought of taking a comedian to court because he was being very disrespectful about your mother and the orangutan. Also part of the whole sort of birther debate. So you can't really take a joke. You seem to be quite thin-skinned. That's not great for politics, is it?
But I think I can take a joke. I mean, honestly, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, some people covered it accurately, some people didn't, but I really enjoyed it. In fact, when I left, people said, "How did you enjoy it?" I said, "I absolutely loved it." I mean, you had the President of the United States doing much of his speech about you. I'm saying, this is amazing. I loved it.
Free publicity.
I loved it. I actually loved it. So
you're an egomaniac.
Perhaps that's a bigger problem. Okay, that could be a problem.
Okay, now you love calling a spade, and I just want to run a couple of your quotes past you, and what you think of them now. So about Edward Snowden, the man who's currently residing in Moscow airport, I think you tweeted last week, he is a traitor.
Absolutely.
And then you added, and there is still such a thing as an execution.
Well,
Are you calling for his execution?
What you have in the old days, when the United States was a strong country, which it isn't right now, but if a person was a traitor, and if you could prove that person was a traitor, that person would be given the death penalty.
Are you saying that he should be given the death penalty?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, he's a traitor. Now,
but are you saying
the
he should be given the
mores
death
of our
penalty?
country have changed, and
Right.
our country is not a strong country like it was. And we deal with traitors a lot differently. Now we deal with traitors where sometimes a traitor becomes a hero. I say he's a traitor. He's made our life extremely difficult in terms of our relationships with other countries. I think
Has
he's
he then?
given away, I think he's, absolutely. I mean, you can't even deal with certain countries. We can't even deal with countries now because all of a sudden they've just learned that they're being spied upon. And they're spying on us. Do you have any question about them spying on us? So he is a traitor. In my book, 100%. He's given away a lot of secrets, and he's admitted that. And I would say you deal with him very harshly, absolutely.
So one more time, death for Snowden or not?
Well, I'd have to see what he's given away. But if he's given away top secret information and information that would be harmful to us, I would say absolutely, no question about it, because you'd stop other people from doing it.
Even though the majority of the American people, according to opinion polls, actually believe that he's not a traitor, he's a whistleblower, and they're very happy, including some of your friends in the Republican Party are
that's
very
true.
happy
That's true.
that he has shone a light on what they would regard as the unsolicited and unjustified intrusion of the American state in the lives of its individuals.
Right. And unfortunately, when you have terrorism, and I witnessed the World Trade Center and I witnessed other things, when you have terrorism, sometimes you do have to go fairly far, because I am a big fan of stopping terrorism at all costs. And I view him as an absolute traitor. I'd have to see what he gave. When you asked me the other question, how far do you take that? I'd have to see the information that he gave. But Snowden, to me, is a traitor.
Okay, if he gets asylum in Vladimir Putin's Russia,
Right.
and if you were President Trump, what would you do about it?
I wouldn't tell you that because I wouldn't want to play my cards in front of you, because right now I'm not. And I wouldn't want to play my cards in front of you. Now, I do have something. I own the Miss Universe, Miss USA, Miss Universe contest, and it's the big pageant. It's the largest pageant in the world.
You would exclude
That is
Russia from the pageant.
Interestingly, that's going to Moscow on November 9th.
Right. Okay, so would
and
you
you have
boycott
a
it?
wonderful representative from Great Britain. But it's going to Moscow on November 9th. And I also tweeted that I wonder whether or not Snowden will be there.
So this isn't
You know that was a joke.
Yeah, exactly. So this isn't gunship diplomacy. This is kind of
look,
Miss World
I
diplomacy
think
that you're
if
advocating.
we had the proper leadership.
Bikini diplomacy.
If we had the proper leadership, Russia would immediately hand Snowden back to us. But we have leadership that is not respected, so therefore he doesn't do that. Putin is not doing that.
So you think that if you were president and you banged the table or snapped your fingers and said, Vladimir Putin, hand that Edward Snowden back to me, he would just do that?
I think I would get him back very quickly, yes. I think that Putin would give him back, yes.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think it's a difference. I think there's a big difference. I think if I wanted him back, he would come back, he would be back, and I believe that Putin would give him back.
Okay.
And it's not just banging your hand, it's much more than that. But if I were president and if he were there, I believe he would be given back.
Let's talk
I
about
don't believe that Russia and others respect our country or our leadership.
Okay. Let's talk about China briefly. China is one of your bugbears. The China-US relationship is perhaps the most important, if somewhat vexed, bilateral relationship between two countries in the world. You said the other day that global warming was made up by the Chinese, for the Chinese, in order to make US manufacturing less competitive.
That's
bonkers, isn't it?
That was said sarcastically.
Yeah.
Not the other day. I said that a couple of years ago. It was said sarcastically. It was said as a joke to create a point. China
So it
is
was a
doing
joke.
very little. Of course, it was
Yeah,
a joke.
yeah.
It was meant to be a joke, and some people found it
One-
very funny.
often-
You didn't find it funny,
Well, no,
but some
but
people.
it's kind of
found
hard to know
And
sometimes,
the
to be
reason,
honest.
well, I mean, are you allowed? I'm a private person. Am I
Yeah.
allowed to be sarcastic on occasion? Am I allowed to joke on occasion? As you said, the
Once a
president
month,
joked.
once a month
The
you get your
president
chance.
was joking during the dinner,
Yeah,
et cetera,
okay.
et cetera. So, but the point was of that China is taking tremendous amounts of business from the United States. China is coming up with all sorts of, propaganda, and it really is propaganda about their environment being clean. Their factories are among the dirtiest in the world. We are cleaning our factories to compete with their dirty factories. So I made that joke, and that was a very well received joke by many people.
Again, this relationship with China
Again, it's
is
very hard for our factories to compete because we spend so much money on air pollution and other things that China doesn't spend, that the cost of our product, among other reasons, especially manipulation of their currencies, but among other reasons, we spend so much money on air pollution and other things that they don't do that it makes our factories very non-competitive in terms of cost.
So when you said in 2010 that you welcomed a trade war with China, was that a joke as well?
No, that's not a joke. No, and welcome.
That's a tragedy,
Welcome is a very
potentially.
strong. No, I don't think it's a tragedy. China has been eating our lunch. China has taken the United States for a ride like nobody other than perhaps OPEC has
But Donald,
done.
they're not just eating your lunch, they're paying for your lunch.
No,
they are
they're-
your banker, and you don't pick a fight with your banker.
You don't understand economics. China is, and I understand bankers better than anybody, okay? I think nobody's done better with bankers than I have. Let me just tell you, China is taking advantage of this country like nobody has ever taken advantage of the United States. They're making our product, they're taking our, when you look at our unemployment, our real unemployment is probably 14 or 15%. It's through the roof. And you look at what's going on in this country, we are not making our product now. China and other countries are making our product. And unless we're going to be very strong with China, and China will not take that fight, because if we ever imposed a tax on imports from China, China would come to the table and straighten out their currency so fast. They manipulate their currency, making it very, very hard for this country to essentially to manufacture things.
If China stops buying US Treasury bills, if China stops buying US debt, this country effectively goes bankrupt.
You're wrong. You're so wrong. Look, we are supporting China. China's supporting us to a very small degree by buying debt. But the big degree is we are supporting China because we're buying all their products. If we ever decided to impose a tax on Chinese products, like, by the way, they do to us, this country would be, two things would happen. Number one, they'd never want to get into that discussion, very importantly. And number two, and very importantly also, is that we would start doing manufacturing again in this country. We would start manufacturing again in this country if they wanted to take us on. This would be a good thing, not a bad thing. Now, it'll never happen. Because if somebody came along and said to China that we're going to impose a tax on your products coming into this country, they will come to the table so fast, but they don't respect our leadership.
Donald, where do you think this chair is made? Where do you think, not this table, but this carpet is made? Where's your office furniture made?
Some of it
where
is
are your
made,
golf balls
excuse
made?
me. Some of it is made in this country. Unfortunately, not enough of it is made in this country.
But we live off Chinese manufacturing, whether we like it or not.
That's because when you say we, you are stupid. You're stupid.
You called me a bad economist. I'm stupid.
Well, you're
what
not
else are you going to do? Come on. I've been very civil to you.
You're not a
Donald.
good economist. No, you haven't. You're not a good economist at all. You don't understand business, and you don't understand what I'm saying with China. You think it's a joke.
So I'm fired,
it's not
right?
a joke.
So I'm fired.
You're not fired.
No.
You're not fired. You think it's a joke, and it's not.
No, it's not a joke. No, I
it's
don't
a very
think
serious
so.
problem. China is rebuilding itself with our money. China is making all of our Apple product. China is making many of the products that we have. China is stealing our trade secrets and our secrets from Boeing and from Caterpillar Tractor and from virtually everybody that goes over there. China is a very serious problem. Now, you also have other countries that are out negotiating the United States at every foot. You're having the same problem in your country, by the way, just so we understand it. Because what I'm saying about the United States is to a large extent true of where you happen to come from, all right, which I know a lot about. But China is a very serious problem for Great Britain, for the United States, and for some others. But it's not only China, it's other countries as well.
But in a globalized economy, we're all joined at the hip somewhere. So if you have a fight with someone like China, it's going to end in tears, even for the United States.
It doesn't have to. All you want to do is you want a fair shake. They've manipulated their currency to such an extent that it's almost impossible for Apple to make their computers and to make their iPhones in the United States. They have manipulated their currency better than anybody in the history of this world, and it makes it it's not that they make a better product, they don't. If that chair is made in the United States, and I buy a lot of product, I try as much as I can to buy the product from the United States, it's actually a finer product. It's a better product. We make a great product. The manipulation of the currency, of the Chinese currency, is so strong and so prevalent and so brilliantly done by them that it makes it very hard for the United States to compete.
So even today, in the year 2013, you would welcome that trade war with China?
I don't think there'd be a trade war, because I think that if we had the right leadership, China would come to the table. China can't take the trade war. We could take the trade war much better than China. In fact, I think the trade war could actually be good for us. We do so much business with China. If we made that product in the United States instead of having it made in China, this country would be booming like it hasn't boomed in 40 years.
You really think that Obama's a weak president, don't you?
I think he's a weak leader, yes.
Killing Osama bin Laden doesn't sort of correct that balance a little bit?
He happened to be there. The military did a good job. Took a long time. It was during. I've never been a big fan of George Bush, but it was also during the Bush administration. It was the same groups looking for him, and he made a decision. But let me ask you this: okay, they call up the military. They call you, and you're actually at the dinner that night, and they call you and they say, "We have Osama bin Laden. You can do three things. We can go in and get him." Okay, I think if you're president, we can go in and get him, that's one thing. We can bomb him, that's another thing, okay. The third thing is we can leave him alone. I don't think anybody sitting in that position is going to say, let's leave him alone. So you're going to do one of two things. You're going to hit a missile or you're going to go in and get him. I think most people would say, let's go in and get him. So I think almost anybody sitting in his position would have said, let's go in and get him, or at least let's kill him.
But there he was at that White House Correspondents' Dinner. He knew that the target was inside, and he was making jokes about you, and then went back to the White House to get him killed. I mean, that's you've got to say that's pretty.
I think
that's
this,
cool.
I think anybody sitting in that office would have made the same decision. I can't imagine somebody saying, "Let's leave him alone."
Let's talk about Scotland. So Scotland is close to your heart. Your mother was born in Scotland on the Isle of Lewis. Right. Is that why you decided to invest there?
Well,
that's an emotional attachment.
That's why I decided I wanted to build. I've had great success in the world of real estate, and I wanted to build something great in terms of golf, because I have 14 clubs, not including Doral, which has 5 courses, which is a big deal in Miami, which I have recently. And I wanted to do something spectacular, ideally in Europe, and ideally in Scotland, because my mother was born there.
And it's the birthplace of golf.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. And we've done something that's truly spectacular. It's being gotten rave reviews. It's doing phenomenal business, so well that we're actually going to be starting very soon on a second course.
And yet you promised to create 6,000 jobs, and so far we've had, 200 jobs created?
Well, until they, no, much more than 200 jobs, but until they decide not, because after I built this magnificent masterpiece that people are calling a masterpiece, you will say, I think even you will say.
Even me.
Even you will say. But until when I built this magnificent course, I was told that they wouldn't build the ugly wind monstrosities, wind turbines, within a very short distance away. So after I'm building, and the building goes on, and I finish this incredible place and get phenomenal reviews, and I hear all of a sudden that they're going to build these massive wind turbines all over the place. And I said, if you build them, I'm not going forward, and I'm not going to do other things, because that was not the deal. They were not supposed to build these. They are really a blight on Scotland. They're a blight no matter where they...
Do you think they're that ugly?
I think they're extremely ugly. I think that they are not good, they're not a good source of power, because they're very inconsistent. They only work when the wind is blowing, so they're not a good source of power. But they are extremely ugly. And if you don't mind, I'm not choosing to build a hotel where the windows are looking into a wind turbine. Does that make sense to you from a real estate standpoint?
Oh yeah, it does, absolutely. So because of the turbines, much of the project is now on hold? Is that right?
Well, I'm starting a second course.
Yeah.
We're going to start the permanent clubhouse, which is magnificent. And then the rest of the project is on hold until I find out what happens with the wind turbines.
But the majority of people in Scotland rather like wind turbines. So it kind of puts you in a tricky position, because you're very vocal about
I don't
those
believe that.
wind turbines.
I think you're looking at the wrong polls, because I'm looking at different polls, and I have more support on stopping these. If you build these things within view of a house, the people can't sell their houses. They cause problems because they're very noisy. They have the flicker effect. They do tremendous numbers on the environment, in addition to killing all forms of birds. They are very, very negative. They're obsolete technology. And frankly, I think I've done Scotland a big favor by exposing it.
Tell me what you really think about wind turbines. No, I'm joking.
You know what? I know what you're saying, but it is a serious problem for Scotland, because Scotland's...
Because it's small.
No, it's terrible.
Whereas here, you see them flying, you fly to the west coast from DC where I live, they're all over West Virginia, but they're in the middle of nowhere, so, I don't know enough about the science of it too, but... Okay, so the question I was going to ask you, Donald Trump, is, obviously you have an affection for Scotland. Your mother was Scottish.
A great affection for Scotland.
But the people of Scotland are also fiercely independent. They may become politically independent next year.
I don't think so.
And so, but if you then kind of tell them the way it is, if you go in there as an American real estate investor, and you start basically yelling about wind turbines, they're going to get upset, aren't they?
No, I don't think
on their
so.
territory.
I think I've really exposed what's happened is, since I've gone public, which is 2 or 3 years ago, committees and groups have formed all over Scotland to stop them. And I think I've told people that there is a way of fighting these monstrosities. When they came in and just started putting them all over everybody's backyard, people were devastated. They didn't know they could fight. And now they know they can fight. And I think I've done Scotland a great favor. I built one of the great golf courses in the world, maybe the greatest course in the world, in Aberdeen. I actually think that exposing wind turbines and the horror show that they wreak, and in many countries they're taking them out and they're being abandoned left and right. I think in a certain way that may have been a bigger favor to Scotland. But I've been very popular in Scotland, and I love the Scottish people, and I think they like me.
I just want to end with a few questions about America, sort of the picture of America. You famously had a program, The Apprentice, which is all about meritocracy. If you do well, you get hired, you don't get fired. Do you think that this country still has a level playing field for ordinary Americans who are trying to make ends meet in this economy?
I think that the big problem, one of the many problems that this country has, is that there's no longer the incentive for people to work. We have vast numbers of people that just don't seem to want to work. Now, whether it's welfare, whether it's lots of different reasons, you can name many different reasons, but the country is not ambitious like it once was, and there's been no incentives created for hard work and for good thought and for lots of other things. And I think it's hurting our country very severely.
But there are millions of people in this country, and I've met so many of them, who are the working poor. They have not just one job, but 2 jobs. that paid lousy money. They're trying really hard and they can barely keep their head above water.
You're right, and there are millions of people in this country that don't work and don't want to work and will never work, and they don't, they're very happy living and getting a check. And you can't have so many people. It's hurting the country.
Is the American dream still a valid concept, or is it a tired cliche?
I think it's a valid concept, but it's changed over the last number of years. I think the American dream has changed. Number one, the housing has been a whole big thing. It used to be a dream to own a house, and all of a sudden people went out and bought houses and they mortgaged them to the hilt, and they ended up losing their house. That was the big American dream, owning a house and having a good job. So I think it's changed, but the one thing I'll say about our country, it has tremendous potential. With proper leadership, which we don't have right now, but with proper leadership, the United States has tremendous potential to come back.
Who do you admire most?
Well, I don't like to say that because, I have so many people that I respect greatly. Winston Churchill is somebody that I had great respect for. Ronald Reagan, great respect. Great love and affection and respect for my father who passed away, but great respect for my father. Businessman, solid, strong, hardworking guy, smart. I respect a lot of people.
What keeps you up at night?
I sleep well. I sleep really well.
Hair? It's fine, it's solved.
Hey,
Looks
it's
good.
Mine.
Okay, so I've got a bald patch developing at the back here.
You look fine.
I want to talk about my bald patch here just for a second. I've got this bald patch here. Can you see it?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, what do I do about it?
I would just leave it. I think it's fine.
Are you sure?
I think
I'm going to look like a monk.
I have a little bit back there too.
Your hair's never looked better in the last
Well, it's
few years, I would
interesting.
say.
So many questions about my hair, and
know,
I had a great
it's
story.
It's a cliche. It's like Imelda Marcos and shoes, Donald Trump and hair.
I had
sorry.
a great story written about me recently. It said, tremendous, everything I do, just tremendous. And he said, the writer said, but I have the worst hairpiece. They called it a wig. And I said, I don't have a wig. I'm not wearing a wig, but that's okay. But the only problem is, as good as the story was, I can't even send it to people. No, it is my hair, as you can see, and it's.
But I now know why you hate wind turbines, because you hate the wind because of what it does to that hair.
No, the wind turbines.
That's what this is about.
Actually,
isn't it?
wind turbines don't create much wind. Unfortunately, they don't create much energy either.
Okay, so final question. Donald Trump, let's just assume for a second, let's indulge the thought that you are going to run for the presidency of the United States in the year 2016. You can't use the slogan, "You're fired," because you're trying to get people to be on your side. What's the slogan going to be?
Well, I think this. If I were going to run, and if I ever decided that I was going to run, and I'm looking at what's happening to this country, and it's not a pretty sight, I think my slogan would be, "Make America Great Again."
That's too long. Come on with something pithier.
No, make America great again. You're talking about 4 words. I think it's a very precise slogan. That would probably be my slogan, make America great again. Tremendous potential in this country, but we're not using it. We don't have the leadership.
Donald Trump, may I?
Yes, you may.
Thank you very much.
You take care of yourself.
Excellent.
Okay.
Good. That was
Good.
a jolly run around.
You take care of yourself.